The film commences in a rehabilitation center, where a group of recovering addicts is seated in a circle, quietly sharing their personal stories. The atmosphere is calm, yet laden with tension. Shortly thereafter, a nurse enters and calls for a woman named Darby, informing her of an urgent phone call awaiting her. Stepping outside to take the call, Darby receives devastating news. Her mother has suffered an aneurysm and is currently hospitalized in Salt Lake City, where her sister Devon is already present. Understandably, Darby is thrown into a state of panic. Later that evening, she clandestinely contacts Devon, and it quickly becomes apparent that their relationship is strained. Devon expresses a desire to distance herself from Darby, while Darby, though hurt, remains resolute. This resolve leads her to make a reckless decision. She sneaks out of the facility, steals a car, and drives into the night. While en route, Darby pulls over, and we are briefly transported into her past through a haunting flashback, revealing an incident where she overdosed in a car, discovered by her mother and sister. Returning to the present, a police officer approaches her and informs her that all roads are being closed due to an impending storm, advising her to wait at a nearby visitor center. With no alternative, Darby reluctantly complies and makes her way there. Upon arriving at the visitor center, Darby realizes she is not alone. Several other individuals are also waiting for the storm to pass. After heading to the restroom, she checks her phone and finds messages from Devon, who explicitly states that she does not want Darby to come to the hospital. Overwhelmed by emotion, Darby retrieves a small bag of cocaine, briefly contemplating its use before ultimately putting it away. Later, she steps outside into the parking lot in search of a phone signal when she hears a peculiar noise emanating from one of the vans. Driven by curiosity and unease, Darby approaches the vehicle and is horrified to discover that a child is tied up inside. She rushes to open the door but finds it locked. Thinking quickly, Darby takes a photo of the license plate and assures the child that she will return before hurrying back to her own car. Attempting to call 911 proves futile due to lack of service, leaving her with no choice but to return inside the visitor center. As she surveys the other storm shelter occupants, a chilling realization dawns on her. The owner of that van must be among them. Taking a seat, she begins to engage with the others present, including Sandy, a former nurse, and her husband, an ex-Marine. Additionally, there is Lars, who appears socially awkward and reserved, alongside Ash, who exudes confidence and charm. To pass the time, Ed proposes a card game, prompting everyone to gather in a circle. As the game commences, Darby engages in light conversation, inquiring about everyone's origins and destinations. However, this is merely a facade. In truth, she is methodically narrowing down her list of suspects. She recalls that the license plate she photographed belonged to a vehicle registered in Nevada. It is then that she hears Lars mention that he is from Nevada. As the game progresses, Lars becomes increasingly frustrated with his poor performance, causing him to angrily scatter the cards. It becomes evident that something is amiss with him. Seizing the opportunity, Darby excuses herself and discreetly enters an out-of-order restroom where she attempts to text 911 to report the child abduction. She even sends the photograph of the license plate. However, once again, she finds there is no service. Realizing that assistance is not forthcoming, Darby resolves to take matters into her own hands. Using a hammer, she prays loose a wooden plank from the wall, revealing a narrow opening behind it. She crawls through and carefully navigates around the building to return to the van. This time, she successfully unlocks the door using a thin metal bar and climbs inside as she begins to untie the child. She notices a medical alert bracelet on the child's wrist. Suddenly, she hears movement. Quickly, she covers herself with a blanket. Just as Lars enters the van and begins speaking softly to the child, it is revealed that the child's name is Jay. As Lars converses with Jay, he abruptly pauses, sensing that something is amiss. At that moment, Darby notices a gun tucked into Lars's back pocket. Lars eventually sits back and starts rambling about a man he refers to as Uncle Kenny, explaining that he is taking Jay to him. Moments later, Lars exits the van, stating that he will go fetch some snacks for Jay. Recognizing that time is of the essence, Darby discreetly leaves a box cutter with Jay before slipping out of the van and retracing her steps. However, as Lars returns, he spots something concerning in the snow, fresh footprints leading to the van. His demeanor shifts noticeably. Meanwhile, Ash grows increasingly concerned and begins knocking on the restroom door to check on Darby. Darby quickly pulls Ash inside. However, before she can provide any explanation, Lars unexpectedly walks in. Acting on instinct, Darby seizes Ash and kisses him. Uncomfortable with the scene before him, Lars turns and exits once alone with Ash. Darby reveals the truth. There is a child tied up inside the van and that Lars likely suspects she is onto him. Ash appears visibly shaken but strives to maintain his composure. He retrieves a nail gun from a nearby tool cart and formulates a plan. Darby will go outside again to ensure that Loris follows her, while Ash informs Ed, the ex-Marine, of the situation. Darby discreetly steps outside and makes her way to the van. Shortly thereafter, Loris follows her. Inside the vehicle, the child, Jay, looks up at Darby, and innocently inquires about the whereabouts of the men who abducted her. That single question alters the situation, significantly reveals that there is not just one kidnapper observing. From outside, Darby sees Ash and Lars engaged in conversation. In that instant, she comprehends that they are collaborating. Her heart sinks as she witnesses them exchanging weapons. Ash takes the handgun, while Lars acquires the nail gun. They are not there to assist her, rather they are plotting an ambush. Recognizing the imminent danger, Darby quietly retreats back into the building. Shortly after, Ash and Lars enter as well. Ash corners Darby, seizes her phone, and deletes the unsent messages she attempted to send to 911. He then scrolls through her texts and discovers messages from her sister, revealing that Darby's family wants nothing to do with her and does not even wish for her presence at the hospital. Meanwhile, in the front hall, Ed begins to sense that something is amiss. Trusting his instincts, he steps outside to survey the area. Back inside, Ash confronts Darby with unsettling questions about her family. He probes deeper, asking about her father and the circumstances of his death. Shaken and frightened, Darby ultimately confesses the truth. Her father took his own life. Ash's demeanor turns icy as he raises the gun toward her head and disturbingly inquires about where her father was shot. In a moment of desperation, Darby calls him a child molester. While Ash does not outright deny the accusation, he claims that he is motivated solely by financial gain. He explains that Jay's father is wealthy and willing to pay any amount to have his child returned. Ash further elaborates that Jay suffers from Addison's disease, indicating that excessive adrenaline could be fatal for her. According to him, Darby's attempts to rescue Jay are exacerbating the situation. Meanwhile, back at the van, Jay quietly utilizes a box cutter Darby left behind to cut through the duct tape, restraining her just then. Ed approaches the vehicle and attempts to open the door. Curiously, Jay remains silent. Inside, Ash and Darby's conversation is interrupted by Sandy, who requests a moment alone with Darby before departing. Ash leans in and issues a chilling threat. If she informs anyone of their situation, he will kill everyone inside. Terrified, Darby remains silent. Although Sandy notices Darby's distress, she does not disclose any information. Instead, she shifts the topic to inquire about brain aneurysms and whether her mother has a chance of survival. Shortly thereafter, the two women return to the front hall and take their seats among the others. It isn't long before Darby observes something alarming. Jay has managed to free herself and slip out of the van. Ash and Lars notice this as well, prompting Lars to rush outside in pursuit of her. Inside, Ed and Sandy remain oblivious to the unfolding events. As Darby heads back toward the restroom, Ash excuses himself and follows closely behind. Moments later, a struggle ensues between Darby and Ash, with Ash quickly overpowering her due to his greater strength. He tightens his grip around her throat, but before he can inflict serious harm, Lars arrives with urgent news. Jay has escaped onto the hiking trail, and they need to locate her. Unbeknownst to Ash, his car key is slipped from his pocket during the altercation with Darby. Seizing the opportunity, Darby discreetly picks up the key, as the two kidnappers compel her to accompany them. As they navigate the trail, Darby resists their demands, shining her flashlight directly into their eyes in an attempt to disorient them. Startled by the sudden light, Ash fires his weapon, although Darby manages to evade the shot. She loses her footing and tumbles down a hill. Back at the building, the sound of the gunshot reverberates within its walls, prompting Ed to investigate outside. In the darkness, Darby crawls away and successfully hides, as Ash and Lars search for her. Meanwhile, Ed discovers Jay unconscious on the ground and swiftly carries her back inside. Noticing the medical bracelet on her wrist, both Ed and Sandy realize that the child is suffering from a serious condition. Shortly thereafter, Darby makes her way back to the visitor center and recounts everything that has transpired. Soon after, Ash and Lars appear outside the building, shouting and demanding entry. In response, Ed barricades the front door with chairs, buying them valuable time. As the kidnappers draw closer, Ed issues a warning. They hesitate momentarily, engaging in a debate over whether Ed is bluffing. Inside the building, it becomes evident that Ed does not possess a firearm. Outside, Ash and Lars alter their approach, claiming that the girl is gravely ill and that they are in possession of her medication. This declaration causes Sandy to waver. As a former nurse, she recognizes Jay's power and fears for the child's survival without medical assistance. Nevertheless, Ed and Darby remain resolute. In a pivotal moment, Darby reveals that she has stolen the kidnappers' car keys. Realizing they have gained leverage, Ed shouts back that they are willing to exchange the keys for the medication. Enraged, Ash and Lars storm back toward their van. However, upon their return, they are not carrying any medication. Instead, they bring a gas can with clear intentions to set the building ablaze. Ed instructs Darby to conceal all the car keys, believing that as long as the kidnappers are unable to escape, they will refrain from harming anyone inside the building. Outside, Ash and Lars begin dousing the front of the structure with gasoline. Inside, Sandy appears visibly distressed and retrieves a can of pepper spray in preparation for self-defense. At that moment, Jay begins to regain consciousness, recognizes Sandy and calls her name, revealing an unexpected connection between them. a flashback unfolds, illustrating that Sandy is employed as a maid in Jay's household, where Jay frequently bullies her. Later, during Jay's abduction, Sandy remains passive as Jay cries out for help. Another flashback depicts Sandy on the phone with Ash, who is furious and demands that she bring Jay's medication to prevent the child from dying. Returning to the present, Sandy suddenly screams a warning to Ash and Lars, informing them that Ed is unarmed. Before Darby can respond, Sandy sprays her directly in the eyes. Ed, taken aback, questions Sandy's actions. Amidst the turmoil, Sandy reveals that she recently received a call from the bank, informing her that she and her family have lost all their savings and their future. She believes she could rectify the situation, with Darby incapacitated. The kidnappers finally breach the building. Ash hands Sandy the medication and instructs her to administer it to Jay. However, the situation quickly deteriorates. Sandy confronts Ash and Lars, only to discover their true intentions. They never intended to return Jay to her parents. The ransom was irrelevant. They are part of a child trafficking operation, and Jay was always meant to be sold. Horrified, Sandy pleads with them to stop, feeling too frightened to resist. Instead, she implores them to take the child and leave, revealing that Darby has hidden the car keys outside. Ash demands to know the key's location, but Ed cautions Darby not to disclose anything. Without warning, Ash fires his weapon, killing it instantly in a fit of rage. Sandy attempts to spray Ash with pepper spray, but Lars intervenes and takes the brunt of the spray instead. Ash then shoots Sandy, leaving her incapacitated on the ground. Darby lunges for the fallen pepper spray, but Ash kicks her aside and seizes it first. He then turns back to Sandy, who is barely clinging to life, and coldly finishes her off. Subsequently, Ash drags Darby across the room and pins her against the wall with a nail gun. Nearby, Lars is in distress due to the pepper spray affecting his vision. Ash assists him in rinsing out his eyes in the restroom, leaving Darby pinned helplessly to the wall. Despite the excruciating pain, Darby struggles to free her wrist, but finds it nearly impossible. She spots a hammer on the floor just beyond her reach, and with no other options available, quietly asks Jay for assistance. Meanwhile, Ash continues to help Lars wash out the pepper spray from his eyes, unaware of Darby's intentions. Lars appears shaken, clearly unprepared for Ash's lethal actions. Jay discreetly hands Darby the hammer. However, before she can use it to liberate herself, the kidnappers return, prompting Darby to think quickly. She discreetly hides the hammer, just as Ash steps closer, demanding to know the location of the car keys. He seizes Darby's phone and reads a recent text from her sister, revealing that their mother has passed away. Leaning in, he presses her for answers, but Darby silently weeps, refusing to respond. Then a small miracle occurs. Her earlier text to 911 finally goes through, indicating that the police are en route. Panic flashes across Ash and Lars' faces. In a cruel maneuver, Ash grabs Jay's arm and points the nail gun at her wrist. Desperate, Darby ultimately relents, informing them that the keys are buried in the snow. Outside the bathroom, Ash hands the nail gun to Lars and departs to retrieve the keys. Meanwhile, Lars appears visibly shaken and clearly uncomfortable with the escalating violence. Seizing the opportunity, Darby whispers to Jay, instructing her to walk over to the light switch and turn it off, knowing that Lars would not harm her. Hesitant yet obedient, Jay complies, prompting Lars to panic and shout for her to sit back down. With the kidnappers distracted, Darby retrieves a small bag of cocaine from her pocket and snorts it to numb her pain. Once Jay turns off the lights, Darby acts quickly. She yanks the nail from her wrist. While Lars struggles to maintain control over Jay, Ash bursts back into the room and freezes. Upon seeing Darby now pointing a gun at Lars for the first time, Ash appears nervous, clearly concerned for his partner. In a sudden turn of events, Jay lunges at Ash in an attempt to knock the nail gun away, but in the struggle, the gun discharges, driving a nail into Lars' head. Guilt and fear overwhelm Ash as he rushes to assist Lars, while Darby and Jay take advantage of the chaos to slip outside and enter Darby's car. Ash tries to help Lars, but the fall has driven the nail deeper, resulting in a fatal injury. Realizing Lars is dead, Ash storms outside in a fit of rage and opens fire on the car. Blowing out a tire, Darby loses control of the vehicle and crashes. As she struggles to regain her composure, Ash approaches the building and sets it ablaze. Returning to the car, he is suddenly confronted by a police officer, who shouts for him to step away. Attempting to feign an accident and seek help, Ash is caught off guard when Darby, now fully alert, grabs a gun and fires at him. The officer, confused and wary, misinterprets the situation and shoots, hitting Darby in the gut, still alive. Ash seizes Darby's gun and fires at the officer, killing him. He then turns his weapon on Darby. Noticing that the officer is not entirely incapacitated, Ash picks up the nail gun and shoots him until he is dead. With the path cleared, he raises his gun once more, aiming at Darby. However, in a sudden twist, Darby delivers a fatal blow to Ash by plunging a screwdriver into his throat. Summoning the last of her strength, she crawls through the snow to access the fallen officer's radio, successfully calling for help before succumbing to exhaustion. In the subsequent scene, Darby is seen back at the rehabilitation center, over a month having passed since the traumatic events. Upon returning to her room, she notices a child's drawing on the wall, a poignant reminder that she has maintained contact with Jake. A nurse then knocks on her door, informing her of a visitor. In the lobby, Darby finds her sister Devon. Awaiting her arrival, they exchange a quiet, relieved smile, suggesting that their relationship is better now.